They said a blind woman had no business in a kitchen, but her food spoke languages their eyes could never translate. If you've ever been told your weakness disqualifies you, stay right here. This story will rearrange everything you think you know about limitation. Like, share, and let someone who needs this hear it today. The market of Sunrise Junction woke up the same way every morning, loud, chaotic, and completely sure of itself. And it was in that noise that Mama Blessing did her best work. Not selling, not buying, talking. The woman had turned gossip into a full-time career with overtime and bonuses. She positioned herself beside the pepper store every morning like a news anchor taking her seat before a live broadcast. And by 7 o'clock, she already had an audience. "My people, gather and hear the latest development," she announced, adjusting her head tie like a crown. "You know Amara, the blind daughter of the late Baba Samuel, the one who moves through this world with a white cane like she's conducting an orchestra nobody else can hear." A few women slowed their steps. A few more stopped entirely. That one says she wants to open a restaurant. A proper sitting down, menu on the table, pay the waiter kind of restaurant. A blind woman in charge of a kitchen where she cannot see the fire she is cooking with. The laughter that followed was the kind that shakes walls. Mama Nkechi, who sold tomatoes from a wide basin, slapped both palms on her thighs simultaneously. Wait. Is it not the same Amara who cannot see her own hand in front of her face? This one wants to cook for paying customers. She will serve darkness on a plate and call it soup, someone else offered, and the crowd rewarded her with fresh laughter. Her mother should have stopped her, Mama Blessing continued, her voice full of the sweetness people use when they are being deliberately cruel. Poor woman. First she loses her husband. Now her blind daughter wants to waste whatever little money they have left chasing restaurant dreams. God have mercy. The women dispersed to their various stalls, carrying the story like a contagious sickness, spreading it door to door, mouth to ear, ear to more mouths. But in a small, zinc-roofed room 3 streets away, Amara Samuel was not thinking about any of them. She sat at a low wooden table, her fingers moving across her notebook written in braille, her brow furrowed with the particular concentration of someone building something real in their mind. Around her were stacks of recipe cards annotated in raised dots, each one tested multiple times and marked with small tactile symbols only she understood. A smooth circle pressed into the corner meant perfect. A small ridge meant needs work. A cross of raised lines meant start again. There were very few crosses in that notebook. Her mother, Mrs. Patience Samuel, sat across from her peeling vegetables, her fingers working mechanically, while her eyes watched her daughter with that specific mixture of love and worry that only mothers carry. She had been watching her with those eyes since the fever that took Amara's sight at age 4. For 26 years, she had loved her fiercely, protected her quietly, and worried constantly. She touched Amara's hand gently to get her attention. Amara lifted her face immediately, turning toward her mother's presence the way flowers turn towards warmth. "Amara, are you sure about this restaurant idea? You know what people are saying." She smiled, not the nervous smile of someone seeking reassurance, the calm, deep smile of someone who has already decided. "Mama, a tree does not ask the wind's permission before it grows. Let them talk." She sighed, the way women sigh when their children are both right and terrifying. "Your Uncle Festus says he wants to see you tomorrow. I told him about your plan." The smile did not leave Amara's face, but something behind her unseeing eyes shifted slightly. Uncle Festus, the village bank that never gave loans and never let you forget it. Uncle Festus lived in a compound so large that the walk from the gate to the front door served as daily exercise for his visitors. He had inherited land from his father, turned it into a block of flats, and spent the rest of his life collecting rent and opinions, distributing both freely and without being asked. When Amara and her mother arrived the next morning, Uncle Festus was already seated on his veranda like a king who had been waiting for subjects to entertain him. He was a big man, not tall, but wide, with a belly that arrived in Rome slightly before he did, and a voice that had never once considered being quiet. He watched Amara navigate his compound with her cane, tapping her path with quiet confidence, and shook his head slowly before she even reached his steps. "Patience, your daughter wants to open restaurant, correct?" She said, not directly at Amara. "Yes, brother, she has a plan. She has been preparing for..." "Restaurant," Uncle Festus repeated the word like he was examining a suspicious fruit at the market. "My late brother's blind daughter wants to collect people's money and feed them food from a kitchen where she cannot see the fire she's standing next to, cannot see if the meat is cooked, cannot see anything." He paused for dramatic effect. "Is that not what you are telling me?" Patience began to speak, but Uncle Festus raised one thick finger. "Let me finish. I am not a wicked man. I am a realistic man. I have been in business since before this girl was born. There are things experience teaches that no notebook can explain." He finally looked at Amara directly, with the particular expression of someone delivering disappointing news to a child. "Young woman, I know life has been hard for you. I understand. But this dream is too big for your situation." Amara's expression did not change. She turned her face toward his voice with the steady attention of someone who was hearing him completely and filing every word away carefully. "The money you need to start this restaurant, I cannot give you. Not because I don't have it. God knows I have it. But because I refuse to watch you build something on a cracked foundation just to see it collapse. A restaurant kitchen is a dangerous place, even for people who can see. Hot oil, open flames, sharp knives moving fast. For a blind woman," he shook his head again, "it is not possible, it is not safe. The answer is no." He leaned back in his chair, satisfied with his own wisdom. "Go and learn something your hands can do safely. Bead making, weaving, something real." On the walk home, Amara moved her cane with the same quiet rhythm as always. She walked with her head level, her jaw set, her free hand carrying her braille notebook like a shield. That evening, she cooked dinner, not because it was her turn, not because she was hungry, but because cooking was the place where everything the world said about her limitations dissolved completely, and the only language that existed was flavor, texture, heat, and the extraordinary precision of senses sharpened by a lifetime of necessity. Her mother ate quietly, then put down her spoon and covered her mouth with her hand the way people do when something moves them unexpectedly. "Amara, this food." She smiled in the direction of her mother's voice. "I know, Mama. I know." The Regional Development Bank on Ikorodu Street had recently renovated its offices to look more intimidating than helpful, which had been entirely successful. Everything inside was glass, chrome, and the particular silence of institutional money protecting itself. The loans officer, Mr. Haruna, was a man who had denied so many loan applications that rejection had become his resting personality. He wore it in the tightness around his eyes and the preemptive shake of his head that began even before applicants finished their sentences. When Amara and her mother sat down across from him, Patience laid the business plan folder on his desk. Amara sat with her cane resting against her knee, her posture straight, her expression composed. "A restaurant loan," Mr. Haruna said, his pen hovering over a form he had not yet decided to fill. "For your daughter. Yes, she has a full business plan. She has been training for 3 years. She knows food supply, cost management, menu design, kitchen organization." "Your daughter is blind." It was not a question. "Yes, but..." "Madam," Mr. Haruna set down his pen, "I have nothing against your daughter personally, but a restaurant is one of the highest risk businesses even for fully able people. The failure rate alone should frighten anyone. You are asking this bank to add a significant additional layer of operational risk on top of an already difficult business model." He said it pleasantly, the way people say terrible things when they have rehearsed them enough to remove the guilt. A kitchen is a high-visibility environment. Timing, presentation, checking if food is properly cooked, monitoring multiple stations simultaneously. These require sight. I am sorry, but our risk assessment framework simply cannot. "Could you please just look at the business plan?" Patience asked quietly.
He took the folder, flipped through it for approximately 45 seconds, set it back down. Very thorough. But thoroughness on paper and execution in a real kitchen are completely different conversations. Imagine the liability if something went wrong. I am sorry. We cannot approve this application. Amara had been sitting in silence throughout the exchange. As they stood to leave, she turned her face precisely toward Mr. Haruna's position and spoke directly, calmly, and clearly. Sir, you reviewed that plan with your eyes and still could not see what was in it. Perhaps sight is not always the most reliable instrument. She picked up her cane, found the door, and walked out. Mr. Haruna sat very still for a moment, then he straightened his tie and returned to his forms. The humiliation of that day settled over them like harmattan dust, everywhere, coating everything, difficult to shake off. They had tried the business association chairperson, a woman named Alhaja Rafatu, who had dismissed them before Patience even finished her second sentence. They had tried the Community Development Fund, which treated the application like a joke someone had submitted by accident. That evening, the house was heavy with the specific weight of doors that had been closed firmly and without apology. Amara sat outside in the compound under a sky she could not see but could feel. The temperature drop, the particular stillness that comes after sunset, the sound of night insects beginning their shift. Her mother found her there and sat close enough that their arms touched, and they stayed in that quiet that only people who have carried difficulty together can share. A slow shuffling at the gate, they both turned toward the sound. It was old Papagbenga. Nobody thought much about Papagbenga. He was the kind of man villages produce and then forget. Quiet, unobtrusive, always present at community events, but never in the center of them. He was a civil servant for 30 years and retired without fanfare. He grew vegetables behind his house, attended church on Sundays, and moved through the village like punctuation. Always there, rarely noticed. He was carrying a worn leather satchel, and he moved with slow, deliberate steps of someone who had decided something important and was seeing it through before he changed his mind. Patience, he said. Settling on the spare stool Amara quickly found and offered him. And Amara, he addressed her directly and naturally, with no awkwardness, no performance of pity. I heard everything. This village talks, as you know. I have been watching this girl cook since she was 12 years old. Do you remember the church harvest? She made that pepper soup that had the entire congregation forgetting they were supposed to be fasting. I have never forgotten it. I have been chasing that flavor in every restaurant I have visited since, and I have never found it. Patience smiled despite herself. I was a civil servant for 30 years. I was not flashy about it, but I was careful with every naira. My wife and I, we saved. We did not spend on appearances. And when she passed 4 years ago, she made me promise to use what we had built for something that genuinely mattered. He opened the satchel. Inside were carefully bound envelopes labeled in neat handwriting. 480,000 naira. Every envelope counted. I have been deciding what to do with it for 4 years. This morning, I woke up, and the answer was sitting right in front of me like it had been waiting patiently. He placed the satchel on the low table between them. I am not giving this as charity. I am making an investment because I have tasted what this young woman produces, and I know precisely what it is worth. I want 10% of the business, officially documented, and I want to eat free on Saturdays. Amara turned her face toward his voice and was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out her hand and found his with the accuracy of someone whose hands had learned to see. She held it firmly. Papagbenga, she said, her voice full but steady. I want you to know that you are the first person who looked at me and saw a chef instead of a condition. My father would have called you a man worth knowing. Papagbenga cleared his throat, tugged his collar. Well, don't make me cry in this compound. Let us talk business. Amara opened her restaurant on a Thursday. She called it Deep Sense. The name puzzled people at first. Then they ate there and understood it completely. From the outside, it was modest. A clean interior, simple sign, 8 tables arranged with careful precision. Nothing about it demanded attention. But the moment food arrived at your table, something shifted in the room. Amara had spent years developing her cooking across every sense except sight, which meant her flavors carried a depth and intentionality that professional chefs with full vision spent careers trying to achieve and rarely did. Her palm oil base was never a degree too hot or too cool. Her seasoning hit with a layered complexity that made people pause mid-bite and look at their plates as if the food had said something. Her pepper soup built its heat in a slow, structured progression that felt less like eating and more like being welcomed into something. She had memorized her kitchen completely. Every station had a position. Every utensil had a home. Her fingers read temperatures with the accuracy of instruments. Her nose caught the exact moment between perfect and overdone with a reliability that made her junior staff, all sighted, quietly marvel. Her first customer was a secondary school teacher named Mr. Adewale, who had come specifically to be polite because he felt sorry for Amara. He ordered the cheapest item on the menu. He finished it, ordered it again, sat for an extra 40 minutes, left a tip larger than the bill. He returned the next day with his wife. She came back 2 days later with her colleagues. Within 3 weeks, Deep Sense had a waiting list for Friday evenings. Mama Blessing arrived on a busy Saturday wearing a large hat pulled low as though she could hide underneath it. Amara could not see her, but she recognized her voice the moment she spoke to the hostess at the door. She came personally to seat her.
Mama Blessing looked up at the young woman guiding her to her table with quiet, practiced confidence, and the guilt on her face was so complete it needed no commentary. Amara smiled warmly, described the specials in precise and appetizing detail, and left her to eat. When Mama Blessing finished, she sat for a long moment before standing. Then she spoke toward Amara loudly enough to be heard. "My daughter, I said terrible things at the market, terrible things, and this food has shamed every single word out of my mouth." Amara turned toward her voice. "You are forgiven, Mama Blessing. Come back next week. I am adding a new dish I think you will enjoy." The woman left, pressing her wrapper to her eyes. Within 8 months, Amara had returned Papa Benga's full investment with his equity stake intact and growing. Within 14 months, a food publication from Lagos ran a feature titled "The Chef Who Tastes What Others Cannot See." The story spread across platforms, was discussed on radio programs, and reached food communities that had never heard of Sunrise Junction. Visitors came from neighboring states, hotel representatives arrived with business cards, partnership offers accumulated on a desk that Amara navigated by memory and managed with precise organization. Uncle Festus came on a Wednesday. He sat at a corner table and ordered water. Amara came to him herself. He looked at his niece, her steady bearing, her quiet authority in a room that was entirely hers, and the pride that had once made him so certain of himself sat heavily on his chest like a stone he had been carrying without realizing it. "I failed you," he said simply. "I dressed my fear for you in the clothing of wisdom and called it advice. I was wrong about everything." Amara sat across from him, called a waiter, ordered food for them both. "Uncle Festus," she said, "you are afraid on my behalf. I understand that. But fear makes a terrible compass." She reached across the table and found his hand. "Eat with me. Then let us move forward." Mr. Haruna eventually sent an official letter on behalf of the bank requesting a meeting to discuss partnership opportunities. The language was thorough and enthusiastic. Amara listened to it through her screen reader, smiled quietly, and dictated a reply that was courteous, professional, and precise. It acknowledged the interest, confirmed that Deep Sense was financially self-sustaining, and suggested gently that the bank might benefit from reviewing how its risk frameworks measured human potential. She sent it on a Tuesday. She did not wait for a response. By the time Amara turned 31, Deep Sense had 3 locations and employed 64 people,
a significant number of whom had various disabilities. She had partnered with a school for the blind to create a culinary training program. She had built Papa Benga a comfortable home with a proper garden for his vegetables and a standing reservation at every Deep Sense location for as long as he wanted it. When Papa Benga passed peacefully 2 years later, at the age of 75, surrounded by comfort and people who loved him, Amara stood at his funeral and spoke clearly. This man gave me his life savings when the world was busy offering me pity. He did not see my blindness as the most important thing about me. He saw my food. He understood that what I was building was real. His investment was not only money, it was belief, and belief at the right moment is the most powerful capital in the world. Papa Benga, everything I built, your name is in the foundation of it. At the opening of her third location, when asked to speak to the gathered crowd, Amara stood at the microphone and was quiet for a moment before she began. People told me that a blind woman in a kitchen was a disaster waiting to happen. They were focused on what I could not see. They never stopped to ask what I could taste, what I could smell, what my hands could read in a piece of dough or a simmering pot. Sight is one way of knowing. It is not the only way. My blindness did not remove me from my kitchen. It built me into a different kind of chef, one who could not take shortcuts that depended on appearance, one who had to achieve real depth because surface was never available to me. What the world called my limitation was quietly, consistently building my standard. Never let someone else's definition of impossible become the boundary of your life. The applause was long. Somewhere in the crowd, Mama Blessing was clapping with both hands raised, her large heart tilted, tears cutting through her powder in small, honest rivers. And from the kitchen behind the celebration, the smell of Amara's food moved through the building like its own kind of light. Warm, layered, impossible to ignore. The kind that reaches you even with your eyes closed. The kind that needs no sight to find. Before this video ends, I want to pray with you. Father, every person watching this who has been told they are not enough, remind them today of who you made them to be. Turn their limitation into their greatest testimony. In Jesus' name, amen. If you received that prayer, type amen below. Now, before you go, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this story with one person today. You never know whose life it will change. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from. Nigeria, UK, USA, Canada, South Africa. Wherever you are welcome here. And if you are carrying a prayer request, leave it in the comments. Nobody prays alone on this channel. See you in the next story. God bless you.